And now we are recording because on our little marathon so far, we've been through 2 episodes, and in the release order now there's a music video called Look My Way, which chat has begged me, screaming, whining, moaning on their knees, begged me to watch it through without interruption the first time, and then stop and analyze it. So who wants to take bets on whether I'm going to be able to do that? Who wants the odds? Who wants to fucking put it out there? Give it a shot. Win some money from your friends with this one weird trick. Take a bet amongst yourselves whether you think I'm going to be able to sit through this thing without pausing it even once. Just, put it in chat. Put down your bets. Wager some money. Mortgage your house to, put down a real big bet. This is going to be the one that's going to change everything. And let's see what happens.
It is expected, an oath by blood to hold the tome. And the starlight passes overhead, fuels all the skills I've honed. I am a guardian, a watcher of these ancient rites. Yet I find myself drawn from that path on those dazzling moonlit nights. Let me hold you, keep you close to me. I long to hear your voice. But dearest, I know better now. I must give you this choice. I can give you everything you need. Or do you want to hear me plead? Just look my way. Just look my way. Is there something more that I don't know, that you won't say till we've both grown cold? Just say, please stay, look my way. This unspoken contract, a deed we forged for mutual gain. If that's all this was when you're not here, what is this rooted pain? I don't care that you're of lower station, or primed to sate my dark temptations. Why can't you understand? Let me explain. And I'm terrified as I cry to make these feelings true. What's left for me and my broken heart if I cannot have you? Unless it's me, and no matter what in this world I could give, it's not enough to get through the walls you've conjured up to live. Is this what you feel? Scorned by a realm that cannot comprehend what you are. So I'll grant you this mercy, this bind on our souls needs to end. I will try to make amends for making you means to an end. So look my way, please look my way. And if there's something more that I don't know, I'll save us both before we grow cold. If you'll stay and just say, look my way.
Never doubt me again. I'm not gonna lie, it was... When the fucking crystal came out, I was like, I want to talk about this! I had the impulse, but... I am a man of willpower and strength and determination and ow, 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 ow. No, baby, no, sweetie. Ow, ow. Oh my god, for fuck's sake. My cat jumped in my lap. Yes, no, hi, yes, I know. Oh my god. No. She's purring so much, but she's shoving her butt in my face? Yes. Yes, I love you too, sweetie. Yeah. Alright. Oh my god. Okay. So let's go over that. Bit by bit. Okay, so there's a fuck of a lot going on here. For one thing, where does he go exactly? Like, he walks up the stairs in there, and then, like... Oh, now there's a curtain for a thing. I guess it's just like a jump cut thing. Whatever. Doesn't matter. It's just a little spatial thing that I paid attention to. So, like, fuck. Where the fuck do I start with this? See, this is why I prefer just to go and, like, anytime I see something, just talk about it immediately. Because I've been sitting there for 4 minutes. And be like, oh, I have to talk about that, 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 have to talk about that other thing, have to, like, and now I don't know where the fuck to start. I guess let's start with a small thing. It's not a small thing, it's a big thing, but a small thing, a thing that's, like, easy to start with. So, Blitz is the moon, right? Like, that's like, Stolas has enamored himself with one particular celestial object, right? And it's a small celestial object, it's not the most important thing in the sky, it's this little thing that orbits the Earth, right? Like, because Blitz, of course, orbits his businesses on Earth. Like, a lot of this stuff is about, like, him having access to the material realm. So this little thing that's not very important, but, like, he still attached himself to it a lot. This little bitty, itty-bitty tiny moon that, like, he keeps chasing and trying to approach and that keeps going away from him every time he tries to get closer. And as he gets more and more into his feelings of, like, powerlessness, it grows, right? It grows and grows and becomes this bigger and bigger, more overwhelming presence. And then here it becomes everything, right? Like, this overwhelming force, this physical object that dwarfs him by 1,000,000 miles, against which he feels powerless, unable to reach out, unable to touch, right? Which is like that reversal of power relationship, right? Like, he starts by literally demonstrating total power over the solar system, and then by the end of it, he's helpless before the moon. Like, this tiny thing that he plucked out of orbit just a moment ago as he manipulates the celestial objects, like, freely, becomes this enormous, uncontrollable thing that he just has no power over, no ability to even touch, much less affect or reach, right? That is quite effective visual storytelling. Like, that's a really good way to use that particular visual metaphor to, like, say something about, like, Stolas' feeling about this particular relationship. So I thought that was very, very effective. Then there's the color, right? We begin in Stolas' color space, right? Like, we begin, like, him, cosmic glow, lots of purple, blue, all of that nonsense. And then yellow. We transition into, like, this warmer yellow glow. Then eventually we get, like, blue and red, right? Like, the contrast between the blue and red. And then the red takes over fully, right? And becomes this banishing light that pushes him away. And the blue, his blue, right? Like, the color that represents Stolas, his power, his strength, his, like, then becomes water. This drowning, enveloping, lonely, entrapping water, right? Like this depth that he's sinking into that he cannot escape from. So again, it begins as the color of his power, his control over the forces of the cosmos. And then it becomes this overpowering, overwhelming, like disempowering, consuming thing that he's powerless against, right? So like just the basics of visual storytelling here, like of using color, of using visual symbolism, like the relative size of things, like all of this basic film language is being used really, really effectively here, right? Also very on the nose in some ways. Like the ring on his finger, but it's not the wedding band, it's on the little finger. And it's like a literal thread between them, and he's choosing to sever it as an act of mercy, like severing the connection between them, and the connection between, oh, hey, look, it's like two hands that are like trying to reach out and grasp for each other that are then being severed apart. Right? Like, very literal. It's not exactly going to win any prizes for subtlety, but it's also very effective. Like, it's very clear visual communication. And that, again, is the thing we talked about in the previous episode, is like, if you're gonna do this, right? If you're gonna do a big, dramatic, like, sad, operatic ballad about how deep this silly bird is in his feelings and emotions, you gotta go for it, right? Like, you gotta play that shit straight. You can't be too precious for your own over-emotionality. This is a soap opera, right? So you go for the low blows. You go for the easy swings, right? Like the shit that's a cliche because it works. Anyway, please, no. No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. She was climbing the air conditioning unit because there's a little gap between the hose of the air conditioning unit and the window where she can escape out onto the patio, and she's not allowed to be out there, which is why she really wants to yell, oh, you're purring now. Oh, we're so loving. We're so innocent. Yeah, you've never done anything wrong in your life. No, I know. You're perfect. And now we're climbing over my... Yeah, I know where you're trying to go, you little asshole. No. Don't look at me like that. No. Oh, honey. Precious baby. I would burn the world to cinders for her. Also, she's the littlest shit on God's green earth. What the fuck was I talking about? Right, you have to commit. Like, you can't... This is a soap opera. These feelings are huge. They're operatic. They are overly romantic. If you don't commit to it, if you don't full ass this shit, it's never gonna land, right? Like, maybe there's more subtle imagery you could go for, absolutely, but these are not subtle feelings, right? This is not a subtle conflict. This is an, like, emotionally stunted bird who's stuck in a state of, like, somewhat arrested development, trying to cope with the first time in his life he has ever truly loved someone romantically. He's a teenager writing bad poetry in a journal, right? Like, that's the emotional level we're operating on here with this poor guy. And you have to take that seriously, right? Like, you can't mock it or roll your eyes at it. You have to be like, no, this is the emotional headspace that he's in. This is what we're gonna do. Like, this is what we're gonna roll with, because that's how powerful and intense these feelings are. That they result in like infinite lines of bad poetry written by people who are desperately trying to put feelings that are just beyond words into the imperfect medium of language, right? Right? So again, point being, it's a valid criticism to say that the imagery here is overly self-serious that it is overdramatic, that it is like going for some very cheap emotional ploys and some very like basic visual imagery. I would argue that this is intentional and the effect is intended. So that like that's not an invalid criticism, just it's a criticism that like maybe misses the point, and you have to distinguish between like, oh no, this turns me off because I find it too like juvenile and basic, versus this turns me off because there's something wrong with it. No, it's doing exactly what it clearly means to do. And so and I think it's doing it really well, right? Like on the terms that this thing is operating on, it's doing really well, doing exactly the thing it wants to do. And then if you don't like the thing that it's doing, 100% fair. I can see many reasons not to. But the technical craft, right? Like the craft of doing the thing, I think is very high. I wonder if I spot a little note of concern in the imp here. The butler. I will also say, Stolas, like, how many busts of yourself do you really need? If the answer is more than one, like, I mean, I guess it's all Arsh Goetia, like, keeping up the splendor and all that, but like, if you're gonna have two, they should at least have different outfits, right? Like, different expressions. They should be doing something like, whatever. Doesn't matter. It's set dressing. It doesn't matter. I'm just taking the piss out of the boy. There you go. So, and going by the lyrics being what they are, it seems I was right. Like Stolas is approaching this as like, he thinks he's doing them both a mercy, right? A service. Like I have imposed upon you this transactional relationship. I need to take responsibility from that and free you from it and set you free to go on your way. And then at the same time, inside of that, there's the love test, right? Like there's the, if I do this for you, please, 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 please hear my feelings, right? Please, please, please take my affection seriously. Please understand that I love you. Please understand that I mean it, right? Which Blitz is completely incapable of doing. Blitz is incapable of fully understanding. Like, and I mean that, like, literally, like, right now, as things are right now, I don't think there's any amount of explaining that could be done that could really get it through Blitz's head. It's like, it's gonna have to be a conflict of some kind. Like, push is gonna have to come to shove here. And it's not gonna be pretty, I don't think, because they're both so, like, we talked about this, right? Like, this thing about Stolas sending Blitz all of these long-winded, like deeply empathetic, like desperate explanations, right? Like so many words trying to get through to this little shithead, right? And Blitz just not receiving or reciprocating any of it because he's not capable of seeing it for what it is. Like his world of meaning is separate from Stolas's. And so Stolas is like, I only know about romance from like all of the love novels I used to read to get me through my desperately unhappy abusive marriage. So he doesn't really have, like, he doesn't have anything else. He doesn't have any other tools except grand romantic gestures and, like, long-winded, desperate explanations, like, using as many words as he can possibly come up with, because he values words, right? Like, for him, seeing things, seeing things expressed in writing and in poetry and all that, that's how he understands things, right? Like, that's how he hears things. That's how he comes to an understanding of something. I'm gonna read about it, right? I love words. Like, I'm gonna open a book, and in the book, there's gonna be, like... And Blitz isn't like that. Blitz seems to be much more of an experiential person, right? Like, he learns through experience. And, like, so Stolas, like, I think Stolas doing all of that talking, like, it must be so fucking frustrating, like, for him, right? Because Stolas is trying so hard. He's doing everything he knows to try and communicate, but he's speaking a language that just doesn't work here, right? He's talking to a wall, right? Or indeed, he's trying to talk through, like, this dark hole, this dark sphere of nothingness that just doesn't seem to let anything he's doing in. right? He's talking to a wall. Like, everything he has tried to sort of reach and get through. And the song also, like, he's trying to reach for empathy with Blitz about it, right? But I think he comes to the wrong conclusion.
And no matter what in this world I could give, it's not enough to get through the walls you've conjured up to live. Is this what you feel? Scorned by a realm that cannot comprehend what you are.
Right. That's a misdiagnosis, I think, of Blitz from Stolas in this point. Scorned by a realm that cannot comprehend what you are. Like, yeah, in part. Like, sure. But so much of Blitz is like, it's self-hatred that's very internal to him. Right? It's like, it's not just that he's been burned by the world around him. It's like this shit isn't because, like, other people weren't appreciative enough of him. This is like years and years and layers of trauma and coping that comes from, like, his internal feeling of being unworthy, right? Of being low class, of being trash. I think, not outside the realm of possibility, that Blitz still feels a lot of guilt about tricking Stolas when they were kids. Like I think Stolas sort of thinks, like, it's other people aren't loving him enough, appreciating him enough, and it's like, yeah, like that's definitely part of it. His dad kind of broke the poor kid from the start, but also it's like, no, he did burn down the tent, and he did, like, nearly kill his best friend, not on purpose. It wasn't his fault. It was an accident. But he did do it, right? Like, it's a little more complicated than just someone needs to love him hard enough. And that feels to me, and this is like me interpreting poetry here, right? It feels to me like Stolas is like, no one has ever loved you hard enough, but if I can just love you hard enough, maybe if I love him hard enough, maybe there's a chance. Like, that's what that feels like to me. Because because I see Stolas as a hopeless romantic who, like, tries to find the means to express how he feels in these grand gestures, these grand romantic gestures. Like, for example, the fucking gem, right? That's a grand gesture. It's like, I am setting you free of our bond, that you may roam as you wish, in the hope that Blitz will say, I was never here for the book, I was here for you. Like, that seems to be the story he's trying to tell himself, right? That, like, if I do a grand enough gesture, if I perform a big enough, like, impactful enough service, then I can get through, right? Because no one else has ever loved him hard enough. Maybe I can do that, right? Maybe I can just, like, approach him hard and fast enough with all my might and all my strength, just try and get to him as hard as possible, and then it'll work. And call me crazy, but I just have a sense that maybe that's not the way to get through to him. Because, like, the thing that got through to Blitz before, right, a little bit, was realizing that Stolas can get hurt, right? Stolas got hurt, and Blitz had this moment of, like, wait, no, what? Like, that's not... What do you mean he can get hurt? Like, what do you mean he's a person, right? What do you mean he's a person like everyone else who's vulnerable and has feelings and vulnerabilities and, like has the capacity for suffering? Because that hadn't entered his head, right? Because, like, no, he's a royal, and he has all the power, and, like, all of the everything, and I am just a plaything and a toy. I'm vulnerable. I can die. I can be hurt. He can't, right? But that moment seemed to, like, genuinely awaken something in Blitz, like, to force him to reckon a little bit with, like, he may have some feelings about this, actually, and then, like, repress the shit out of it immediately. So, like, what's gonna actually get to Blitz? Like, my feeling is it's a conflict. Like, my feeling is it has to be a fight with Blitz. Like, he's not gonna get it until there's a fight, right? Until there's a confrontation where he's forced to... Because that's what happened with Fizz, right? Like, they had all of this fucking resentment, 15 years of, like, barely running into each other, building up all of this anger towards one another. It's not until there was a confrontation. It's not until he actually had a chance to, like, face-to-face have a fight with the motherfucker that's when, like, the feelings actually broke out and Blitz was able to verbalize any of his fucking emotions about anything. So, like, I think it's gonna have to be a fight. Like, I think it's gonna have to be something's gonna have to knock Blitz out of that shit and, like, force him, not convince him, but force him to consider, right? Force him to apprehend the possibility that someone could love him. Because you can't explain him into it, right? Like, it's that thing, you can't logic someone out of a position that they didn't logic themselves into. Blitz didn't rationally conclude that he's unlovable. It's, like, years and years of trauma and horrible experiences that have forced him emotionally into that position. It's gonna take something other than rationality, right? It's gonna take something other than explanation. And like long-winded romance poems to try and to knock Blitz out of that headspace. And it's that thing, it's like, I don't blame Stolas for not knowing how to reach Blitz, right? Blitz doesn't know how to reach Blitz. And Stolas is like, he's never been in love. He's never had a loving relationship. He's never had to navigate romance. He's never had to navigate love. He's never had to learn how any of this shit works. He has only been able to read about it. And, like, I have a feeling he wasn't reading therapy manuals. I don't think he was reading couples therapy, like, study books from university. I think he was reading romance, right? And on the other hand, Blitz, equally, like, poor kid, like, he doesn't have the tools to deal with his own trauma. Like, he's not seen a therapist. Like, he doesn't know how to reach him either. Like, if Stolas were to ask him, what can I do to prove this to you? He'd be like, I don't know. Like, so, like, it's not that there's a bad guy here. It's not that there's a villain. There's not that there's someone who's, like, being abusive or cruel or controlling. It's that there's two people very, very sincerely trying to do right by one another, but their understanding of what right is completely at odds. It's completely askew from one another. Right? That's what makes it tragic. That's what makes it a soap opera, right? The cheap thing in the soap opera, right, is, oh yes, I am your long-lost twin brother's sister's amnesiac father who you thought was dead for 20 years, and I'm back, and now I've made your sister pregnant. Like, that's the cheap soap opera thing, right? Like, it's like pulling these, like, plot twists and, like, these, oh, this was my secret brother the whole time, out of their ass in order to force, like, a reason for these people to care about each other, right? Like, force them to have a reason to give a shit about each other enough that there's drama in seeing them bounce against one another. This is not cheap soap opera. These are two people who earnestly want to love each other, but circumstance has just made it impossible for them to do it right yet, right? There is a barrier between them, which isn't that, like, again, cheap tawdry romance, like, it's like, oh, but like, poor stable boy Max, I cannot love you, I'm engaged to Lord Fauntleroy, and, like, my father and my family require me to marry him. It's like, and Max, like, I don't care, I love you, we shall run away together. Oh no, I don't know if I can do it. And then Lord Fauntleroy, oh, step away from my fiancée, you poor peasant, I shall have her for the marriage this evening, right? Like, it's setting up, like, these, like, social barriers that are just sort of arbitrary and ridiculous. This, again, is not cheap, because this is like, no, it's not that there's someone outside of them. It's not that there's some Lord Fauntleroy. There's not some third party getting in between them. They're getting between themselves. Their issues, their trauma, their misery, their damage, the suffering they've been through, the pain that they've been through, all of that shit compounds in really difficult ways. And that's what makes this more interesting to me, because it's like, this is gonna happen to you someday. Like, and I'm not, like, I'm speaking as an aromantic person here. This doesn't apply to romantic relationships only. This, statistically speaking, has happened to you. And it's gonna happen to you, because that's how being a person works. Like, you have damage, you have traumas, you have blind spots, you have weaknesses, you have difficulties in your life, things that preclude you from loving yourself as fully as you should. And that's going to get in the way of your relationships, and you're going to have to learn to navigate that shit, right? That's what makes this interesting, is because it reflects something that's actually real, rather than, like, you're never going to have your amnesiac twin brother's cousin, third removed, show up and get, like, your child pregnant or whatever. Like, soap opera bullshit is never going to happen to you. But a lesser version of this, a slightly less operatic and fantastical version of this, yeah, no, that's... this kind of conflict is going to happen to you. That's what makes it interesting. Like, for me, that's what makes it worth engaging with. Because, like, it's that old quote. I can't remember exactly what who said, but, like, the purpose of art is to prepare you for death. Right? That's what this is. Like, this is art that reaches into the human experience and says, I see you. Right? Like, these are experiences that exist. We're going to tell stories about them. We're going to see each other through art. We're going to know that our experiences are real, and that they exist in more people than just us, and that these are things that can be overcome and that can be processed and dealt with. And in so doing, that allows us to, like, reach for some hope of growth, like, even if just being seen, right? Like, that's the comment I've gotten for, like, the videos that I've done about being aromantic, is that a lot of people were like, oh shit, I feel seen by this for the first time in my life. Oh shit, like, wait, hang on, someone else feels that way? Like, someone else has that experience? That's really powerful, and that can be a big help in, like, helping you cope with your human condition. That's what I think is powerful about this kind of art, is like, okay, we're dealing with something real. It's heightened, it's cartoony, it's not realistic. Like, nothing about this is realistic, but it comes from something that's real. Anyway, let's just start at the beginning, actually. I lost my thread there. I had a plan for what I was going to say after that, but then, you know, I went off on a thing. Also, the animation is, like, this is another thing. Because it's a music video, it's 4 minutes of very concentrated effort. Like, we can play with some fairly... like, that's a fairly subtle transition of expression here, because, like, what I see here is, like, there's a smile that spreads on his... I mean, he doesn't have lips, but you know what I mean. There's a smile that spreads on his lips, right? Like, a sort of... but not a happy smile. It's, like... it's that smile you kind of make when it's like, well... like, this is, like, we're moving towards the thing, right? Like, the little bags under the eyes that are, like, not prominent. It's not like, oh, he's been losing sleep, but just a little sense of tiredness. And, like, those lowered eyebrows and, like, the eyes kind of squinting together. Almost as though, like, maybe he's getting ready for a tear or something. Or holding something back. Like, there's a tension in the face there, right? As well as that resignation. Yes, right? Like, and that feels like a reconfirmation, right? Like, he looks at that, he goes through a bit of an emotional journey about it, and then there's that, like, yes, this is the right thing to do. Like, there's this sort of, like, closing the eyes, looking inwards, coping with his feelings, and going, yes, this is right. Like, I have decided to do this thing. I have committed myself to my course of action. That's what that feels like to me, like, in terms of the acting that's happening with Stolas here. Right? Because that's the moment when, like, he closes it as well. And, like, that's the other thing. As he closes, like, the lid on this box, which contains, like, this is the solution to the problem, right? Like, I have settled on my gesture. This is the solution I'm going to pursue to the problem that I perceive. We are closing the book on this, right? Like, again, not subtle, very literal, but, like, we're going to close the book on this. We're going to make this over, right? There's this sense of finality to the gesture. We're going to end the contemplation. We're going to end the... I wonder what that book is, by the way. Because, like... It's the only one with a padlock on it. Is that a book we've seen before? Am I just not remembering that was from the episode where they were in the library with the kids? Is that the book with all the love spells in it? Was that the thing? Who knows? It might not be anything. It's a background detail. I don't know. And another thing about this, right, like, is the power imbalance between them, right? Because, like, the actual problem, part of the actual problem, is a problem of class, right? Like, Blitz is like, I'm a low-class imp from nowhere, I'm worthless, like, who cares? Like, I don't matter, royals don't care about us, they've never cared about us. And so he perceives himself like there's no way in hell he could ever consider me worthy, because no one possibly considers someone like me worthy of him, right? So he can't possibly do it either. So Blitz is in this position of, like, massively diminished power relative to what Stolas has socially, right? And that's sort of on display here. Like, if the moon is Blitz, like, at this point, Stolas is in complete control, right? Like, Blitz is within Stolas' sphere of influence, right? Like, what we're portraying here is, like, Blitz is within Stolas' sphere of influence. He's a thing which Stolas has theoretical control over, right? Like, a thing which is theoretically under his ownership, under his command. What we get from Stolas' experience here is, and by the way, fucking rotations, like, Stolas does not experience this control. Like, from his perspective, he has no control whatsoever over any of this fucking thing. He wants very badly to hold it close to him, right? But then there's also, like, this gesture here, which is like him, I'm willing to let you go, right? I want to hold you close. I'm willing to let you go. Like, reaching out, like, sending it away, but then also chasing after it, right? So Stolas' feeling is, like, this is a thing, I guess I'm supposed to have control over it, but I don't want to have control over it. I don't want to dominate it. I want it to choose to orbit me, right? I want it to choose to be in my gravity, to look my way. And so he chases it, right? So from his perspective, he doesn't have that sense of control. He doesn't have that sense of privilege, which I think his lack of consciousness of that difference, right? Like, he says, oh, I don't care about your station. Well, Blitz does, right? And, like, not only him, you saw it at Aussie's, right? Like, that Blitz got that very painful reminder that just by being in a relationship with him, Stolas is degrading his own station, right? Like, so one of the things that Stolas is asking Blitz, if he wants to be in a relationship with him, is like, yeah, I'm asking you to, like, hurt my social station. Like, on purpose, I need you to cause me social problems and make my social position more difficult and, like, cause other people to view me as, like, degraded and less worth and, like, and worse. And that's a difficult ask of someone like Blitz, right? Like that's a difficult thing for him to do to Stolas, right? And again, Stolas doesn't see that, right? Stolas doesn't see that, like for him, being loved earnestly, honestly, openly by Blitz would be a blessing. Like, that would be the greatest joy of his life. But again, going back to, like, the parallels with the Fizz and Mammon, Fizz and Asmodeus, the Fizz and Asmodeus relationship, like, Fizz has that same insecurity, right? Like, it's like, I have just barely managed to be worthy of you, right? Like, I can't face the possibility of not being worthy of you by not being the best anymore, right? That's a very difficult thing for Fizz to overcome. So imagine someone with fucking Blitz's damage on top of that, right? Trying to cope with the idea that he is tainting Stolas by association, right? That's a hard thing, right? Like, that's part of the reason why Blitz doesn't feel like he could possibly believe in this, is because, like, I can't possibly be worth this. Like, he would be tainted, he would be poisoned, he would be degraded by association with me. So, like, if I dared to pursue this, that would be a cruelty, right? Like, that would be evil to him to, like, to put him through that. I think that's also part of Blitz's, like, emotional makeup on this, is like this thing of, like, not only would I be unworthy of him, I would be a burden. I would be a problem that he would have to manage, right? I would be an issue that he would have to spend his time and his energy trying to trying to cope with, right? Rather than we can be happy in an equal and like equitable partnership. It's like, I'm always gonna be like the fucking string around his feet, right? Like, I'm always gonna be the fly in the ointment. I'm always gonna be the problem, right? And that's not an attractive proposition for a romantic relationship either. Like, to sort of like, even if I were to believe you, even if I were to enter into this, what I would be saying yes to is like, and that's the thing about like that's the imagery from Truth Seekers with the chains, right? Like, I would be a burden to you. Like, I would be something that's like attached to you, holding you back, holding you down. I would be bringing all of my sludge, right? Like, that's the imagery from Truth Seekers. Like, Blitz constantly mired in sludge and dirt that clings to him, that sticks to him, that drags him down. And Stolas as like this image of something that is pristine and pure and untainted. And Blitz like, I would get my taint on you. In more than one way. I didn't even see that sex joke coming. That's what she said. But like, I would taint you by association, right? I have such a weakness for this kind of animation. Like this, because like, what we're doing here, like, Helluva Boss characters are already extremely highly stylized, right? Like, they're very flattened. They're very like they're very stylized. Their forms are in many ways very simplified. Then we do like this fucking constellation shit, and like they have to simplify and like stylize these characters down even harder, way harder. And in order to do that, in order for the character's posture to remain readable, when you do that, you can see that like they're choosing some really like extended, exaggerated key poses for Blitz, right? Because as he's moving here, barely coherent. So like we have to have like this strong curve with the tail, like the arms very clearly separated from each other, like the legs crossing over in a way that like has this demonstration of a clear overlap. Because when the character is like reduced to just lines like that, it can be very easy to make them muddled, to make their physicality, their three-dimensionality harder to read. I just like seeing that as an exercise. Like, which details do you choose to keep? Which ones do you elide? How do you merge them together? How do you simplify the shape to work in a form like this? I'm a sucker for that. Like, I love it. Like, La Ligne is like fucking classic of cartooning. Like, the sheer amount of expression you can get out of like a single line character. Ooh. Like, it's so cheesy, but it's so good. Like, it's like, yes, it should be that cheesy. Because again, that's another thing. This song is inside of Stolas' perspective. Stolas' hyper-romantic, inexperienced, slightly arrested perspective. And it's like, yeah, this is what it feels like to him. Like that, like, cliche as it is, this is an accurate representation of what all of this feels like to him, right? That is very pretty, too. Literally turning away from him like, oh, it's heartbreaking. How grim.
And I will try to make amends for making you means to an end. So look my way, please look my way.
Again, like, I will reach out so hard, right? I will pour all of my power. Like, we see that instant shift from like the reds and yellows to boom, Stolas power, pow, launching himself. Like, I'll try to make amends. I'll do everything. I'll do the like expend every resource, like everything. Just please, 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 hear me, hear me, hear me. And I wonder if not this sort of, like this, the fact that it doesn't work even in his imagination, it's a reflection of his fears for sure. I wonder if not it's also a reflection of, like, maybe he kind of knows it's not gonna work. Like, I think it's his anxieties, but, like, does he have a premonition that, like, this isn't gonna get through to him? Like, that's not the thing that's gonna work here. I wonder. But it's the only thing he knows, right? Like, it's all he has. It's the only tool in his toolbox. Hence the hopelessness, right? Like, hence the immersion in water, the drowning of, like, I mean, I don't have anything else. Like, what the fuck else am I supposed to do? The powerlessness. Because, like, if I knew a better way, I'd take it, but this is all I got, right? And then the contrast, right? Like, it's again that contrast of, we open on Stolas in his seat of power and glory, multiple busts of himself, completely identical, like sculptures, statues, paintings, portraits, stained glass windows, full models of the solar system, gold trim up the ass, like all of the signifiers and symbols of power and control you could ever possibly wish to have, lordship and dominion. And then this progressive, like, it's really a story of him getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, right? He begins the size of the solar system. And he ends like this insignificant mote, this like little speck of dust floating before something that is so much greater than him, and fading away into nothingness, right? So, like, there's this, we begin in this seat of power and glory, and so by the time we return to it, by the time we return to this grand office, we understand the irony of it, right? Like, that all of his power, all of his wealth, all of his money, all of his magic, all of his position, all of his social, like, clout, all of it is just, it doesn't do anything for him. It does not get him what he wants or what he needs. Like, you can't buy me love, no. So, like, now we get the cruel irony of it, right? And again, we're deeply inside of Stolas' perspective. I'd be really curious to see one from Blitz's perspective, honestly, also. Like, we got that in Truth Seekers. Like, we got sort of the evocative sort of theater of the mind imagery for Blitz and Truth Seekers. I would like to see, like, I would have liked to have seen a full music video working on exactly the same principle, like, what kind of imagery associated with who Blitz is and what he does could we use to express exactly how he feels? But there's a good reason not to do that also. Because the uncertainty of that, like the ambiguity of not knowing, I think that is kind of necessary. Like, if you know all of the pieces beforehand, before the moves actually play out, right? If you know all of the, oh, these are all of the characteristics of the thing, then you can kind of plot out exactly how things are gonna go. But if you know only one side, that biases you, right? Like, you watch this music video and you feel so bad for Stolas. Oh, poor little feather boy. Oh, sweet little baby. Like, oh no, precious, I hope this works out for you. It puts you in the position to hope that his gesture works, right? Like, to hope that this thing that he's gonna try, this attempt that he's going to make at trying to get through this shit, of like trying to find some way, you hope so badly, like, even if you know that it might not really be the right thing to do, or that it's not likely to work, even if you can see the disaster coming from a mile away, much like, it's the same thing with, like, rewatching Titanic, right? Like, you love the characters, and you feel for them, and you just, like, just this time, just not hit the iceberg. Like, what if they just didn't hit the iceberg this time? What if the bad thing didn't just drive like 2 degrees to the left, fucking whatever. Like, don't hit the iceberg this time. But they're gonna hit the iceberg, right? That's what makes the tragedy delicious, is like, it's hope, right? It's this hope against hope that maybe this time it works, right? Like, maybe this time Blitz will actually hear him. Maybe this time Blitz will actually see him. And so you're in Stolas' position, right? Like, even if it's not likely to work, you kind of, but what if it did, though? Like, what if it did, though? What if it did? What if it did work? What if it did get through to him? What if they could be happy, right? What if it didn't have to hurt so much? And that's what makes the tragedy delicious, right? Like, that's what makes it emotionally compelling. And that's the thing about, like, I will say I have no animosity in my heart against Fix-It Fix. I understand them intimately. I think Fix-It Fix are a wonderful way to engage with tragedy. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. There is an impulse that you get in, like, certain kinds of media discourse, right? Where it's like, well, why didn't they just fly on the eagles to Mordor, right? Like, that kind of thing of, like, well, there's a perfectly logical, simple solution to the problem. Why didn't they just take that one? Because they didn't take the logical solution to the problem is stupid, right? The story is stupid because they didn't sit outside of the story looking in with perfect omniscient knowledge of everything that's in play and make the logically correct decision for the situation that they're in, right? And that I find very annoying. And it's something that sometimes gets applied to, like, stuff like... I used to do this myself. Like, that's why I find it annoying. It's like, oh, this is a reminder of my own flaws, right? That sometimes gets applied to romance. It's like, why are they having a conflict? Why can't they just talk, right? Why can't they just talk to each other honestly and, like, just figure shit out by, like, this fucking... like, instead of doing all this grand gesture bullshit, like the dancing around, why can't they just talk to each other and sit down and have a conversation? And then we don't have to have all this fucking rigmarole. But, like, the rigmarole is the point. The conflict is the point. Like, the drama is the point. The emotional difficulty of it is the point. The point is that it's worth doing and worth going through, even though it's hard, because it's hard, right? Like, it's still worth going through it. Like, it's still worth seeing the tragedy. Those feelings, like, even though they're uncomfortable and can be painful, they're still worthwhile as a part of the human experience. Solving everything with perfect logic every time is like, yeah, cool, you solved all the problems, but where's the story now? Right? That's the other thing. Like, it's... Hamlet as a play is fundamentally about Hamlet inventing 4,000 different reasons not to do the obvious thing he needs to do and kill his fucking uncle Claudius, right? Claudius killed his dad, usurped the throne of Denmark, and like is fucking his mom. Kill the guy. It's obvious. Just fucking do it. And the whole play is Hamlet over and over and over again finding reasons to doubt, finding reasons to fear, finding reasons to be uncertain, finding reasons to procrastinate, finding reasons to put it off, finding reasons to worry that he's not doing the right thing, right? And if Hamlet at the start of the play just went, I need to kill that guy, and then killed him, then there'd be no play, right? There'd be no story. Nothing would happen. There would be nothing to experience there. The irrationality of it is the point. The difficulty of it is the point. Like, the fact that these two dipshits can't just get their eggs in a row and sit down and talk and earnestly communicate their feelings with each other is the point. Because, again, that's what being a person is like. That's what being I don't care. Like, I see it sometimes in certain kinds of autistic people. It's like, I'm sorry, you can't rationalize your way out of all of it. You can't. I'm sorry, it's not how people work. It's not how anyone works. Whether you're neurodivergent or not, you can't just rationally talk your way through all of it. Much though I would wish we could. Like, I have had that frustration, believe me, so much that, like, couldn't people just fucking say what they mean and say what they need? For once in our lives, could we not just simply say out loud in clear, plain language what we want and what we need? I'm sorry, no. It would be good if we could. And you can definitely do things to make it better and easier. But I'm sorry, we are human beings. We are irrational meat animated by chemicals and electrical impulses. This is just how it's gonna be. And it's frustrating. I'm not saying you have to be okay with it. I'm not saying you have to be okay with people doing unclear communication at you, especially if they're doing it on purpose. I'm not saying it's not stupid. It is. And, like, extremely frustrating and very disproportionately cruel to autistic people who have more difficulty than most with these things. Like, absolutely it is. It is an axis of oppression, 100%. And also, it's a part of the human condition. We can't opt out. I'm sorry. It's like, it's there. We gotta deal with it. And yes, all the neurotypicals could learn to deal with it a lot fucking better and do a lot more work to accommodate you. And also, in addition to that, you have to learn to cope with it too. Like, there are ways to do it, there are ways to learn it. More people should be willing to teach you. But this is just what it is, I'm afraid. Like, I don't know a solution to it. If I did, I would be a billionaire self-help guru. And possibly I would have solved war. But like this, all of this agonizing, this misery, it's all worth, like, it's all a worthwhile part of the human experience. It is. Even when it's stupid. I wonder about also... I don't know how much to read into. I mean, I've been reading pretty fucking far into everything that's happening in this thing. It does also occur to me that, like, what's happening here is, like, Stolas is conjuring a bunch of images of Blitz, but it's always these stylized images, right? Like, it's always these simplified, incomplete drawings, right? It's always these idealized, to an extent, sort of unrealistic pictures of Blitz. Like, it's not really portraits, it's not the full character, it's not really, like, because they could have done that, right? They could have had it, like, literally be a fully animated, fully detailed version of Blitz appearing, but it's not. It's like this starry constellation image. It's these, like, not quite filled in, not quite detailed versions of him that never show their face either, I should say. And, like, I wonder if not in there is a little bit of, like, a thing of, like, Stolas' image of who Blitz is and what he needs and what he wants is incomplete, right? Because that, again, seems to be what the story is driving at, is that Stolas, for all that he's trying so fucking hard, he doesn't quite understand Blitz, because Blitz hasn't made himself understood, right? Blitz hasn't told him anything that he could use to understand him with, so of course he doesn't. But also, like, that like, Stolas just doesn't really have a...
that cannot comprehend what you are.
Right? Are these the walls you've built to, like, to protect yourself from a world that can't comprehend what you are? Maybe you also can't quite comprehend what he is yet, Stolas. Like, because, again, he hasn't told you anything. Like, he hasn't opened up to you, so how would you know? But also, maybe you don't know him, right? Like, maybe you have this feeling of deep connection, and, like, I'm the one who can see all the good in you. I can see all the beauty in you, all the wonder in you. But, you, like, if you can't see the ugly in him, then you can't really see him, right? And Blitz is hiding it. Like, he's doing everything he can not to let you see it. But if you can't see the ugly, then you aren't seeing the whole person, are you? Like, you're not really seeing the full width of him, the breadth of him, like, the full depth of him. Again, and it's tragic because it's not Stolas' fault, right? It's like, what else is he supposed to do? But he is in a position of, like, maybe you don't understand him well enough to know what kind of gesture will get through to him. Poor boy. Like, I love you, little feather man. I'm sorry it has to be this way for you, but you're a fictional character, and we hurt you for our amusement. Anyway, hello, chat. How you doing? I can see you now. Have you been enjoying it so far? Okay, it's going by really fast. I spotted a bunch of eggs, and someone said something about Mpreg? Do I need... Can I even put a time limit on this chat in some way? I don't want to do it, because it's very funny to see you people key smash like little bottoms, but, I wonder if it's even... I don't think I can, actually. What? Am I wrong? Am I wrong? I'm really happy that you're here. I'm really pleased that you're here, chat. It is very fun to tease you like this. Your reactions are so cute. Anyway, I think... Well, no, that's not all I have to say about this fucking thing, but we've been going for an hour, and that was a 4-minute music video. So maybe that's enough for now. Yeah, you know what, actually? I'm gonna cut it short at 1 hour, right? And then I think I'll see what people say in the comments to that video. And maybe I'll do, like, another video following up, like, sort of going off... If like, people pointing out things that I've missed or things that I've misinterpreted, I think maybe I'll do, like, a comment thing to sort of dive more into this thing. Because I think there's a lot there in there still to talk about. Because, you know, I never shut the fuck up. Maybe that will be fun. So I'm going to cut this short at only 1 hour. I know a lot of you are going to be very disappointed. Like, I know there's going to be comments, I was expecting 4 hours. And, like, you could have 4 hours if I felt like it. Absolutely, you better believe it. But it wouldn't be 4 hours at the highest quality, I will say. So I'm going to cut it here. Anyway, I forgot to look at the credits. Let me just restart the recording. Let's look at the credits. That's thank you, chat, by the way, for calling that out for me, because I do need to go look at those. I think that kind of is important, actually. Gonna have to splice that together in the edit, but, you know, I can do that. All of your work is appreciated, horseless cowboy people. Good job on the storyboarders here. Like, again, all of the compliments I gave to this thing for, like, oh, like, it's using the cinematic language very effectively. I was like, yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the fucking storyboarders, the board leads, and, like, the main storyboarding artist. Huge amount of the credit for that. Also the director, obviously, also the director, right? Like, but like, the fucking storyboarders, like, are the people who are responsible for like putting all of those fucking shots together, and like keeping that cinematic vision in their head with help. Like, no one does it alone, but big credit to them for, like, this thing being as good as it is. Oh, that's a fucking Northern European name if I've ever seen one. Sine Dauma Slitherman. Or Signe Dagmar Slitherman. Whatever the fuck. Like, that, Sine Dauma. Those are Danish, Scandinavian, fucking Norwegian, sweet. Like, this is full Scandinavian. And then a Slitherman, yeah! Which is very, very Germanic. Like, South Danish, German, Dutch, perhaps. My apologies, by the way. I didn't mean to make fun of you. I'm not making fun of the name. I'm just like, oh, hey, I'm from here. I recognize those words. Also, the background people in this one. Like, a lot of spacescapes and all of that, right? But, like the fucking office, though, right? Like, Jesus. And, of course, like, the effects team on this one working absolute overtime to get this shit done. And it's like, I might have talked about them before, but, like, compositing all of this shit together. Like, all of the effects that were happening, the water jump shot, I guess someone's like, is Fly-by-State and saying the water jump shot, compositing all of this shit together is like, good job, man. Written and performed by Paranoid DJ, sound designed by Paranoid DJ. So Paranoid DJ was like a fan who contributed like the song to the thing. Is that what it was? A bunch of fan-made music. Oh, and Vivsy honored his work by making a song of his fully animated and canon to the show story. That's cool. Hey, Vivsy Pop, do you need a guy in your show who just never shuts the fuck up about anything? I don't know. That's my contribution. This is what I bring to the team. I can yap for 4 hours about a 4-minute music video. These are my skills. Anyway, thank you, chat, for reminding me to look at credits, because it is actually kind of important. And now, let's move on to the next episode.